No, let me expand this even more. It was like I got dropped, not chose to jump. It's like I got dropped from a cliff. And somehow on the way down, I've just got sweet bangs to the chin and to the stomach. So it's like I'm already falling. And on the way down, I'm getting hit. That's what it felt like. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, how the hell did I get here? And like, it's kind of why me? Like, why am I going through this?
Okay, I'm keen to find out how you got into this men's mental health world and the somatic coaching.
Yeah.
But let's start with how you grew up.
Yeah, so how I grew up, from South London. Parents, my mum, my dad. I've got 3 siblings. So I've got my 2 younger brothers and my younger sister. Went to the general sort of school around the area. I feel I was quite to myself, like quite quiet. I was very studious and quite academic. I wouldn't say excessively smart, but I always liked learning and, just taking on new things. Was always dancing. So that was from a young age, from like the age of, from when I can remember really, moonwalking on the carpet in my grandma's house and trying to practice all of Michael Jackson's moves, Janet Jackson, Jackson 5 and that sort of thing. So yeah, I grew up in, quite a 2.4, household. I used to go to church as well. So that was very, very embedded within like the family culture, like going to church on a Sunday, various different churches as well. So a period of my life was in like the Pentecostal church, which is the more, evangelical, quite loud, gospel music. Also attended like Baptist church when I was in my teenage years. So we would go to like conventions in like Butlins. And if you heard of Butlins, it's kind of like a holiday park resort thing, but like low cost. And there was they would take the weekend, for instance, and it would be like a worship weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
In the UK?
Yeah, in the UK. So there's like Butlins, Pontins, and they've got various different locations, usually on like the coast. So you've got like Skegness, Bognor Regis, and things like that. So we would go away for a week with the church folks. We was young, so I was just having fun. But they would have like the youth convention stuff as well, where you get to connect with loads of different people. And even just thinking about it now, I feel I've always had that, even though I felt a bit of shyness in myself, I've always had that confidence to connect with people. Maybe because I was always put into those situations to do that anyway. So I'll be dropped off and it's like, okay, go. Go and make friends. I had a few friends there anyway.
Why did you switch from Pentecostal to Baptist?
It was actually the other way around when I'm thinking about it. So I don't feel there was a reason that I was aware of because I was quite young. But I just know that there was quite a few transitions. So there was Church of England when I was trying to get into secondary school, because I think my parents wanted me to go to like a church school, and you need to go to a particular type of church in order for the reverend to officiate the papers so that you can get in. And then it was like the more Baptist, and then it was the Pentecostal. And at that age, I was much older to make decisions for myself and actually enjoyed it. I got baptized, not baptized myself, but I made the decision to get baptized as well when I was about, what year was that year? About 13, 14.
Huh.
I think maybe 15.
And you hadn't been baptized before?
No, because, I wasn't really aware to make that decision at the earlier opportunities that I had to do so when I was in like the Baptist church, for instance.
But like as a babe, like I was just baptized as a baby, like I didn't know.
Oh, in terms of like what we call it christening. So I got christened. Yeah. So I got christened when I was a baby. But in terms of like my understanding of being baptized was, in the churches that I was attending, is when you're old enough to make that decision and make that commitment for yourself. So
that's like confirmation in the Catholic Church.
Exactly.
Got it. So which I also feel like I didn't really choose to do. It was just like everyone's doing it.
Almost kind of like a rite of passage. Like I know, like definitely to get into the schools, you need to show that you're an attendee of a particular church. But yeah, the Pentecostal church that I was going to, that was where I made the decision myself. And it felt completely right. I didn't feel like I was coerced or forced into it. You know, I was on a pathway of like wanting to learn more about Christianity, get closer to God, as they say. And yeah, I made a decision to become a Christian and get baptized. Although I'm not a Christian anymore, it was definitely a part of my life where it opened me up to more kind of like, not otherworldly, but I feel that if I didn't go to church and kind of have the exposure to what I witnessed, more specifically in the Pentecostal church, I don't know if you've ever seen any footage or anything, it is very charismatic. So, you know, and sharing testimonies of things of what God did, or, you know, all of these sort of things like that. And I do feel, when I reflect back, that being present in that space allowed me to be more aware and think outside of the box in terms of like other spiritual practices and, you know, even like journaling. I know as simple as it is, but, you know, people talk about receiving downloads from somewhere. Like that sort of exposure in the church, I feel if I didn't have that, I don't feel I would have found where I am now, you know, in terms of like practicing meditation, like journaling and being interested in spirituality and like what else is out there, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
And were people in the church from specific cultures or backgrounds, or it was like really mixed?
I mean, it was predominantly Caribbean, you know, Black, African. Wasn't too diverse, my particular church, but the church also was a part of like different not networks. What's the word I'm looking for? They were part of like a bigger sort of association. So they would also have conventions. I think it's like a church thing. So there'll be like pastors from America that would come down as well, and they would go to one of the bigger churches where it was a lot more diverse in terms of the people that would attend. But my particular church was a lot more Caribbean and African cultures that was attending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And wait, is Pentecostal the one where it's quite strict with alcohol?
I mean,
or maybe I just know someone who's he's from Ghana, and it's like he doesn't drink at all.
Yeah, I think it varies. I think it varies depending on the type of church, like who the pastor is, and just obviously everyone's personal preference. Like there was a stage for me, and I was very challenged with it because I've always, not always, but many times throughout my life I've had long hair. Right now I have locks. Before I had like plaits and stuff like that, you know, piercings. I've always kind of had piercings. So you'll be shown scriptures or hear about scriptures in the Bible that will say, you know, men shouldn't have long hair. I'm like, what? But Jesus had long hair. Like, what do you mean? You know, or like
and
tattoos.
And like Moses and like I feel
yeah, so back to the question about is Pentecostal kind of strict on like alcohol consumption? I couldn't say. For me, I was like 16, so I wasn't like drinking heavy, 16, 17. And then I stayed in church until I went to university. So I was about 22. And then I kind of like second, third year of uni, I was like, yeah, I don't really want to, it just wasn't resonating with me. And the thing that wasn't resonating with me with going to church is like the feeling, I would get like a feeling of guilt if I'm drinking or if I'm going out, or if I'm listening to rap music because it's secular music and it's not gospel music.
Huh.
And I'm a dancer, right? So therein lies sort of like some of the conflict that was arising in me of like, I've got a passion for dance. I've got a gift. I would be dancing in church, you know, so I'd be dancing in church to gospel music, and then I'll be in rehearsals from 7 till 10, dancing to like Busta Rhymes, you know, with like loads of swearing and all of those sort of things. So I found myself in this conflicting space where I, quite frankly, a lot of times didn't feel like I was worthy enough, or like I had to ask for forgiveness for some of the things that I was doing. And it got to a point where it was just tiresome. And I was like, I don't want to live my life constrained to certain rules and regulations, and if I don't adhere to these, then in the eyes of God, I'm seen as a sinner. Like it just didn't. There's just something about it that didn't land well with me. So whilst in uni, and just even relationships, you know, like getting into relationships and just doing the stuff that you do, it's like, am I a bad person? Do I have to like pray now? You know?
Was that pressure coming from other people, or that was you interpreting?
That was, it was internal. It wasn't, no one was chastising me for like doing stuff, you know, and it's not like I was excessive in my behavior or very overt, you know, to kind of offend anybody. It was never anything like that. It was my own conscious sharing the thought that felt like I shouldn't be doing X, Y, Z. And it's like, I don't want to feel like that. You know, I feel that I've always wanted to have freedom to express and explore, like traveling, and dance really allowed me to express myself in that way. So where I say that I didn't necessarily feel, I felt like I was quite shy or quite reserved and to myself, dance definitely has been the vessel for me to communicate words that I wasn't necessarily able to verbally say or feel comfortable or confident in saying. Dance is my language in that sense.
Amazing. That's so funny, because that's so the other way around for people like me, that it's like I could so comfortably like say whatever that I'm thinking to any group of people, but to like dance is like terrifying.
Yeah, it's an interesting like dynamic, because most people I'm sure would assume that you need to be confident to dance. And it's like, yeah, I had that confidence, but there was just something about it that really allowed me to be more confident, because it was a different modality of communication for me. You know, writing, comfortable with. Articulating how I felt, maybe not so comfortable. And I'm the eldest as well. So I was watching back some home videos of myself, and I really came to realize, along with my partner as well, really came to realize my character growing up, which was very much like a loving home, you know, as I said, you know, both parents, siblings, all of these sort of things. But there was a lot of, I felt, and I can reflect now, there was a lot of responsibility bestowed upon me from a young age. So I feel I've always kind of had this more mature mindset. So dance was like me kind of just letting things go and not taking too much responsibility, having fun. And then as time went on and I started to dance more professionally, it allowed me to travel, you know, connect with people all over the world. You know, I'm talking about various different countries. I went to LA for a while, trained out there, New York, came back, you know, so dance really has been a vehicle for me to find my voice where I didn't feel it was there. I didn't feel comfortable with my voice and sharing it.
And what were the values your parents instilled in you growing up? What did they want for you?
Respect, respect, especially in a Caribbean household. Like my heritage is South American, Guyana. So I've had my elders around me, you know, both grandparents on both sides when I was growing up. Aunties and uncles, and anybody else who isn't really your aunt or uncle, you still call them auntie and uncle. You know, it's that kind of culture. So it very much was like respect your elders, work hard, you know, get an education. I never felt pressure to have to do a thing. But again, this was me putting certain pressure on myself, being the eldest. And I feel there were little things that were said, more so from like grandparents. You know, go to uni, make sure you get a degree. As a young black man, you need to work that bit harder in comparison to your peers. So there was a lot of those sort of things subconsciously playing on me. And I did go the path of going to uni. I studied business management, marketing. I was going to drop out towards the last bit because I wanted to pursue my dance career. But I stayed, and I'm glad I did. And at the same time, I do feel there was kind of like an unspoken expectation for me to achieve and set a benchmark for my siblings, and also my cousins, because I'm the eldest child and I'm also the first grandchild on both sides, you know.
So did both sets of grandparents move over from Guyana?
From Guyana, yeah.
And then both your parents grew up in London?
Yes, exactly that.
Huh.
Yeah.
But there's like a community and
Yeah,
they met
it's all,
through that?
Yeah, it's all very... like there's loads of Guyanese people here, you know, there's loads of people from different smaller islands as well. Trinidad, you know, Jamaica. There's loads of people. So I feel just like culturally, it was normal for me to be around people that were a lot older than me. You know, we would go to like parties, and I remember like going to like a house party with like the big stereos playing till late at night. And when we're tired, we'll get put in a corner to sleep, or we get put upstairs to the coat room. So there'll be a bed and you'll sleep, and then all of the coats will just get thrown on you. And then about 1 o'clock, your parents will come and collect you. You're half asleep, you get thrown in the car, and then you wake up the next morning and you're in the bed. You know, those are some of the memories that I would have. Or observing the elders dance, you know. So, I mean, I don't know if it's specific to like Guyanese culture, but they would have like slow music towards the end of a wedding or something. And I would always find it interesting to watch the elders dance, because they would dance head to head. So they'd be very close and they'd be dancing. And it would be like, what are you doing? And it reminds me of the song, is it Lambada? I'm not going to sing it because I can't sing. But there's a particular song, the Lambada, and the video is a young boy, I think he's Brazilian or South American of that heritage, and he sees a girl who's a bit older than him or looks a bit older than him, and they catch each other's eyes, and he's observing the elders dancing in like this bar environment. It's kind of like, you know, very like swanky, like bouncy sort of thing, and then he grabs the girl and dances with her. But due to like the culture clash, you know, as a young white girl and a Brazilian dark-skinned guy, the dad comes in and like separates them. So when I look at that video, it takes me back to not so much the sort of discourse, but just observing people dance and being really intrigued by the movement and like, what are they feeling? Like, how did they even learn to dance like that? Yeah.
Got it. So dance was there really like within the community, and
it's been there. Dance, music, my granddad's storytelling. So my mum's dad always telling a story. When I was younger, I never appreciated it. Now, especially jumping onto Twitter, and he wrote. He's a reverend, by the way, and he writes all the time. Whenever you go to the house, there is the Bible, there's books, there's papers, because he's always writing like missionary letters, like that get sent out to people in different parts of the world to spread the gospel of of Jesus Christ. So before, it was just weird, like you're not going to school, you're not studying, why are you writing so much? Now I can appreciate it, because he will always be able to tell you the story, and he'll be able to tell you the story exactly as he told you the story before, and the time before, and the time before. He'll tell you dates, locations, and he's very he can capitulate into what he's sharing. So he's very like animated in his speech and in his movement. Like I said before, I never really appreciated it, but now I'm older and I'm more aware. I kind of see some of those elements in me as well that may have just, led me to where I am in terms of the movement side of things. And then obviously more recently, the last couple of years, like the somatic world, and bringing those two together. Like that's part of my vision, is to bring the skills and the understanding and the knowledge that I'm developing in the somatic realm from a coaching perspective, and bringing it back to the dance community. And the reason being is because there's a lot of work that is being created in the dance community that is stemming from a place of trauma, with little to no support or safeguarding. So to elaborate on that more, people are taking on characters that carry quite a lot of weight behind them. They're going into rehearsals or research and development processes for like 2-3 weeks, and then they're going into rehearsals for like 4 weeks, and then they're doing 2 shows a day for a run of 2 weeks, embodying a character that is not them, but they're taking it all on. It's similar to, you know, like the method acting or like Joker, you know, the can't remember his name. You know, it's that sort of thing. But in the hip hop dance community, there's not a lot of support. And I had first-hand experience when I started creating a piece of work for myself, which was interestingly based on the story of Cain and Abel, the biblical story. And I was exploring masculinity and the psychological effects on Cain after he kills his brother Abel. Because as far as I'm concerned, in the Bible, you don't hear anything else. Cain kills his brother, then he gets banished, and he goes to this, he creates a city of Enoch. And that's it, he just like lives his life, you know. I was really interested in what happened in between. Why did he kill his brother? And how was he mentally? Again, tying into this like men's mental health topic. And when I was doing my research and development that I got funding for, I was somebody else for 2 weeks. Not only in the rehearsal room, but in my personal life. Because not only was I directing the piece of work, I had a team of people, but I was directing it's my vision. I had to embody, I was Cain, so I had to embody Cain, this character that kills his brother, this character that, you know, through a fit of rage, finally realizes what he does. That was my narrative that I developed anyway. And I found myself going psychologically and also on an embodied level, going back into parts of my real life to take out some of that emotion that I could put into the character. But I didn't know what the hell I was doing. The skill, the dance aspect, yes. But the aspect of like tapping into this like liminal space, you know, what's in the field and like all of these emotions and stuff, I didn't know. My partner was like, you were someone else for 2 weeks. I was like, yeah, it had to be. I didn't really think about it. And then as I started exploring more, which I can share more, like kind of like how I got into like the somatics thing, that's when like 2 worlds started to collide. And that's when things started to make more sense to me. And I'm like, oh, so that might be why I was feeling X, Y, Z, or that might be why I was able to kind of pick up, you know, a traumatic time in my real life and bring it into the space for the piece of work, and for me to feel like I'm almost split, like I was present in the piece of work, but I felt in order to make the work believable, I had to go to the past, you know, and doing that over a long period of time without a sense of safety in yourself or in your surroundings can be psychologically damaging, which in turn could affect what you carry physically, you know.
And were you aware of the biggest traumatic times in your life at that point?
At the point of creating the work? No. I knew like I had gone through some stuff, some stuff in terms of my relationship, which was where I was pulling quite a lot of the emotion from. But I don't feel that I realized how deep it was at that point. I don't feel like, because I went to therapy after I had started, after I was doing the research and development. And yeah, I don't think I realized the scale of how much those past experiences, when I say those, more specifically the relationship that I was in, how they affected me, how they shaped me, you know, how they shaped the way I was thinking. And the fact that I was even able to go there and remember that guttural feelings, or those guttural feelings, I wasn't aware.
That's what I wanted to ask about growing up, whether you took on that pressure that, you know, you as the oldest grandchild and these expectations of you, or even like you have to work twice as hard because you're a black man and all of these. How did you cope with that?
Actually in that particular, I just got on with it because I just thought it was normal, you know, and I guess there is some normalcy to it. I wouldn't say it's abnormal, but I didn't question it because I just thought, this is what I'm meant to do, right? This is my position as the eldest. This is my position as a boy growing into you know, a young man or a teenager. I never questioned it. And it's interesting you ask that question because even as I'm reflecting now, one of the insights after watching back some of the old footage was the fact that I don't want to take on responsibility at times. I just don't, you know, and to really own that as well, because of the realization that there was kind of this underlying expectation for, okay, Mike, can you go and get the nappies for mum, please, to change it? Do you know what I mean? Can you go and do this? And I never felt put out. I felt like this is what I should be doing. I'm helping out. I've always been quite helpful. But looking at things now, I came to realize that that was normalized behavior. So anytime someone requested something of me in my later stage, I felt like I had to do it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay, rather than... So then does that mean you could be taken advantage of?
No, yeah, I feel like there was a lot of naivety, especially in my relationship.
Yeah.
There was a lot of naivety, and I feel that was seen. Obviously, I can't speak for the other person, but having, you know, gone to therapy and reflected and continuing to do the inner work and realizing the character disposition of the individual I was with, that type of character tends to prey on individuals who are able to give in that way.
Got it.
You know, I'm kind of like going around it in that sense while still holding integrity and being respectful for somebody who's not here and can't speak for themselves. But I've come to realize that for myself, that piecing things, I think it's Steve Jobs that says it about being able to piece things backwards, right? Looking backwards, I get a strong sense that how I grew up to be was partly because of what the conditions I was in and what was expected of me and what I chose, because it's still a choice, right? What I chose in myself to do, feeling that was right, that later on down the line in certain relationships or just not even romantic all the time, friendships, you know, kind of always feeling like I need to give advice or I need to be able to like help solve something that is brought to me. I've had that quite a lot, which is interesting because that was when I started to realize that more, along with my current partner, you know, because I considered becoming a therapist because I always kind of felt like people would come to me for like advice, like, yeah, Mike, like, you've always got like something good to say or like words of wisdom. Pardon me. Even on the other hand, which has taken me a while to sort of sit with, and I'm still processing how I actually feel about that, is like the term being used to me is like, oh, Mike, you're quite deep. And we're like, what does that mean? Because I've definitely internalized that as like, I'm too deep. I'm not understood. Right? So it goes those different sort of layers of like, oh, I'm too deep, I'm not understood, I feel set apart, you know?
That's so funny. I've had that as well.
Have
but
you?
it's like gone because I get to like connect with people like this and realize the people who are judgmental or who don't like it when I go in that angle.
Yeah.
It's now just like kind of irrelevant to me because I've found the space where there are so many other people who do want to connect in this way.
Where you can have these conversations. And yeah, it would get to me. I'd be like, what do you mean I'm too deep? Or like, especially when I came away from church as well, you know, and I'm walking around with like pendants and stuff of like the Eye of Horus, or like I've got my crystals, my Palo Santo and sage. And it's like, I've come from a church background, like I'm a church boy, quote unquote. And I'm bringing, you know, telling my mum about certain things, or like going to see a tarot reader and saying, oh yeah, like grandma said hi. She's like, what? She's like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah. You know, because I'm interested, and there's a level of belief. There's still a lot more that I want to explore and uncover and build within myself in terms of my own life philosophy, you know, and sort of, not to say that I want to separate myself from what I learned in like the Christian environment, but to truly own who I am and what I believe, and not be wavered by somebody saying, oh, you're so deep, or like, you're really deep. And it may even be said in an endearing way, but how I was processing that was, you don't understand what I'm saying. Or we're having a conversation, you may be able to resonate, having a conversation, and you're wanting to bring a deep topic. You're wanting to bring a topic that has some depth behind it, but it goes probably one or two sentences, and then it just veers off, you know, and it's like, oh, so am I the only one that's interested in astral projection? You know, am I the only one that's interested in manifestation? Am I the only one that's interested in questioning why everyone majority of the time does the same thing? You know, so coming into Twitter, seeing, you know, people's individual philosophies, being in a position where I'm now challenged to think about what's my philosophy? Because as much as I subscribe to what I was brought up in, like I said, I've always had that free spirit energy. I want to go to LA? Okay, cool. I'll get a part-time job at that time anyway. I'll save up money. I'll book my flights. I'll go on booking.com and I'll go away for 6 weeks. And every time I did it, you know, I didn't really have the need to look for financial support from my family. They definitely gave it, and especially in times of need, where I've had times of need quite a few times. But the things that I wanted to do, I would do it. A business idea, create a clothing line in university. Okay, I did it. You know, I used some of my loan, used some of my money from teaching, because at that point I was teaching. I was also working like retail, so I had a Saturday, Sunday job. Used my money, created a clothing line. Didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I stayed up, watched webinars. Went on YouTube, went on forums, called around people to find out how to screen print. And I started selling items, you know, being invited to market stalls, Camden Market and things like that. Not a crazy successful like business, but I had an idea and I tried it. The same with my dance, you know, creating things, Cain and Abel, any other sort of piece of work, bringing people together, dancers, having a vision, making it happen.
And was your family supportive of your dance career?
Yeah, they would come to events, you know, mum would like Facebook, my son's on TV, or, you know, things like that. So very supportive. So it's like, there definitely was that balance. And you know, I never felt pressured to do things. It's only in hindsight, reflected, it's like, oh, maybe there could have been some expectation, a little bit of pressure that even my parents didn't realize they were doing, because of course you don't know what you don't know, and they were brought up in a certain way as well with certain expectations. I think we all have this sort of bias, you know, underlying within us, especially when you have if you have children, you know, there's an expectation. I don't want my son to grow up to be, you know, a down and out, doing things I wouldn't, you know, want him to do. So I've already got an expectation. The challenging part of parenting, I guess, that I'm learning now with my son, he's 10, is where's the line? Where's the line of this is what I would like for you and this is what you're going to do because you're your own person. So looking back, I can see that was just the case. My parents loved me. They were supportive and still continue to be supportive. And obviously I'm older now, so I have confidence in what I share and what I believe. So I don't feel like I have to agree with everything that they say. Whereas when I was younger, so you live under our roof, so you kind of have to agree. And there's times obviously when I didn't, and I was like, screw you, I'm leaving. But I was never really in a position to do that.
Huh. What was the stuff you wouldn't agree about?
It wasn't even more so, it wasn't so much necessarily what I would agree with, it was what I didn't agree with. It was what I felt I couldn't do. So, I wanted to go out and hang out with my friends, albeit on the street, maybe, but the fact that I was stopped from doing so, it was like, but I just want to be free. I want to just do what I want to do. I want to explore. I didn't feel like I was exposed to a lot. I never had a games console, or if I did, it was like a hand-me-down games console, or it wasn't the console that I wanted. I wanted a PlayStation. Instead, I got like the original SNES from my uncle. So it was just things like that. Whereas my friends, they had the PlayStation. They could play football on the street or go to the park by themselves. As I got older, I could do that with a select group of friends where my parents knew their parents. So it was very much about that. And I understand, as a parent now, I don't want my son to just be out on the street, especially with what's going on in London, like the gangs and the crime and stuff. I wouldn't want him to be doing that.
Is it way worse now? Really?
Yeah.
Like knife crime,
gun crime, probably knives or samurais more than knives. Yeah.
Just theft or drugs?
No,
or...
like gang rivalry, like postcode wars. Yeah.
And this wasn't as much of a thing when you were growing up?
It was a thing. Like, I've had encounters, not directly myself, but I've been in the spaces where they've happened, like coming home from a one key one, coming home from going to bowling, getting on the bus, getting to a certain stop, a gang coming onto the bus, basically taking up the top deck. The bus stop was approaching to get off with me and my friends, and then we ended up getting off early. So I was like, what's going on? So my friend was like, just get off the bus. I was like, but this is not our stop. He's like, just get off the bus. We got off the bus, then the gang got off the bus, and basically they stole my friend's phone. Apparently, they held a gun to his side. I obviously don't know because of where I was situated. I didn't see it happening. But all I know is that his phone got robbed, and they were like, "If you want it back, you got to fight us."
And were they kids?
No, they were older. They were like, how old would I have been? 15, 16, maybe about 18. But it's worse now. There's like 13, 14-year-old kids running around with samurai swords thinking that they're in a video game. Killing each other.
Really?
Today, yeah.
In the area you live?
Not in the area that I live specifically, but not too far. Like,
wow.
Not too far from where I live. There was a young girl that lost her life. Altercation, broad daylight, school time, on the bus, killed by a guy, got stabbed, all over the news. Crazy. So those things were happening when I was growing up, there was very much like the gangs, like, you know, the different gangs, everyone's got their street name, even myself included, whilst I wasn't gang affiliated. I was in this like, I want to be cool, so I want to be with like the gangsters, but also I know that I couldn't get away with that. And I wasn't that kind of kid. You know, there's some kids that are that way inclined. I wasn't that way inclined at all, but I wanted to fit in. I wanted to, I guess at that point, I guess it was like, oh, freedom, you can do what you want. But I'm glad that I never went down that route. There's people that I know of, I'm not necessarily say friends, but people that I grew up around that, yeah, definitely went that way. Some of them have turned their life around since then. Some of them I don't even know where they are. But that was definitely a thing when I was growing up. Mm. So being academic, being in a dance pathway, I wouldn't say it shielded me from that, but it definitely was a path ordained for me so that I don't go down another route, because that other route was easily accessible, you know, so easily accessible.
And was there a pattern of people who ended up going that route?
Well, boys, black boys predominantly, you know, predominantly single home parents. It's, you know, it's the usual statistics, you know. No father, single parent, mum's working her arse off, or maybe not, depends, you know, everyone's situation is different. Young boy finding himself, finds community of other young boys who are also finding themselves, like the Lost Boys, Peter Pan, don't have the resources to have what they want financially because of the low income socio-economic stuff, find other means to get money, turn to crime, drugs, all of that. It's, you know, it's very, what's the word? Systemic. You know, it's very much like certain parts of the country, you're going to get that. It's like anywhere, you know. So yeah, that pathway definitely was open for me to go to. And interestingly, when I was in church, there was a lot of outreach for like youth work to help young boys, not just young boys, but young people that may find themselves in that space, you know, and coming to church as like a safe space, and using the music studio or the dance studio to, you know, creating music and rapping. You know, I used to like write lyrics and try my hand at rapping and stuff like that. So yeah, there was a lot of links, and this, even just having this conversation with you, is helping to sort of see where some of those other links are that I may not have realized before. Yeah.
What were your parents' jobs, by the way?
So my mum has always worked in childcare. So when I was much younger, she used to work for the BBC, actually. So she was able to like get me into like some of the TV shows and stuff in the audience. And my dad's always worked in IT. I never knew what the hell he did until probably, let's say, 10 years ago. I didn't know what he did at all. I just knew he worked. I knew he worked in IT and with computers, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if he was fixing computers or working on a computer. Like, I didn't really know. So yeah, just very like standard, not to belittle their jobs, but you know what I mean? It's not like they was, no. Yeah, it was quite a standard job. Yeah. You know?
And for you, was it kind of like, okay, go to uni, whatever, but then like working, it's like as long as you're working and looking after yourself, you can kind of do whatever. There was an expectation that you follow a particular career path.
No, there wasn't an expectation, which I'm thankful for. There wasn't an expectation from my parents to go into a particular job. You know, there's some parents that are like, you must be a doctor, you must become an accountant. I didn't have any of that. You know, I looked at various different things. I looked at becoming a lawyer. Then I saw 7 years. I was like, screw that. I'm not trying to do that. I did look at accounting, even though I wasn't a fan of numbers. But at that point, I was like, I want to make money. But then my dance passion started elevating. So I chose that because it was more fulfilling. And I chose business management marketing because it's one of the easier degrees. Like, to be honest, I didn't feel like I had to think too much because I already had that, at least what I thought the course would be. I had that creative element, that entrepreneurial sort of flair, or at least interest. So I chose to go down that pathway as a more easier route in comparison to like doing law or doing psychology, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I don't think 18, 19, to know exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life, that's a huge ask. Like, you're just figuring things out, I feel. Because I knew I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to make money. I wanted to go into corporate because I was like, well, that's the only way I'm going to make money. Like, a lot of it.
What was making money about? What was making money about for you?
To live a certain lifestyle. Like, I wanted to be able to travel, I wanted a nice big house. Still do. Wanted a nice car. And it's not like I'm a car fanatic. I just want a nice car. And I guess just even thinking about that, I think some of that does stem from, again, the childhood. It's not that I didn't have things that I needed. I definitely did. Like, I can never say that I wasn't brought up well. Like, 100%. We never went for anything. You go to my grandparents' house, there was always food in the fridge, in the cupboard, very, very, very blessed, abundant. And there was always more that I wanted because I didn't have the things that I necessarily wanted. I had what I needed, but I didn't have what I wanted, right? So there may be something in there where it's kind of like, well, I want to be able to buy myself a new games console. I want to be able to buy the nice trainers, because when I would say, I want these trainers at £67, 60, £70, I'm either having to ask my auntie, who is only a few years older than me, so she was in tune with kind of like that timeline of like what was trendy. If I ask my parents, like, I want the Nokia phone. Nah, you're getting a Sony Ericsson, the phone that nobody wants to get because it's cheaper. I want the Nike Air Max 90s. No, you're getting these brown, yellow, and blue Adidas. So it was always, I want this. No, you can't get that. There was never an explanation, which would have been helpful. We haven't got the funds. It was, this is what you've got instead. And because of how I was brought up, I feel that there was the need to have to appreciate it, regardless of it being not what I wanted.
And were you able to do that?
I was able to do it.
Interesting. Okay, so money was like freedom to get the things that you wanted.
Yeah, definitely. And I now know, I was even reflecting on it earlier, it was never the money, it was what the money could have allowed me to do. So the core desire is the freedom. It's the autonomy to do whatever the hell I want, whenever the hell I want. Because, I don't know what I would do with with a ridiculous amount of money. Like, I don't really feel that's the lifestyle that I would. That's not the lifestyle I'm striving for. I'm striving to be in a position where I have a nice amount of money coming in that can afford me to do the things that I want to do when I want to do that. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I need to be earning £1 million a month. Like, what am I going to do with £1 million a month?
Yeah.
That's not the goal. It's more so the lifestyle ambitions. Not having to save up for 2 years to go on a 2-week holiday and ask my boss if I can take 2 weeks off. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's more so like, Okay, babes, I'm gonna go to Thailand for 2 weeks. Yeah, okay, cool. When do you want to go? Next month? Cool. Like tomorrow? Okay, cool. That sort of thing. And obviously money, exchanging money, having money allows you to do those things. But when I was younger, there wasn't a lot of money. There was this spirit of content. Do you know what I mean? Be content with what you have. The dinner's on the table, the rice, the meat, the salad, glass of water. Even as I'm doing this, I feel like my granddad. Because he'll be like, there's a little saying, which makes no sense, by the way. Eat little and live long. You can't eat little and live long, right? It's a contradiction, but it's one of those like Caribbean or maybe more specific Guyanese sayings of the spirit of contentment. Being content with the little that you have, because there's some people that don't even have a little. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is very much how I've been brought up, is to be content with what you have. So sort of breaking that glass ceiling was nothing that was taught or given to me. Somewhere along the line, I picked it up because, no one in like my immediate family, when I was started, so the clothing line was like my first venture, entrepreneurial, dabble.
And was that to try and make money, or was that like a creative
It was
outlet?
a creative outlet. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I went to Matalat, which is maybe like a level up from Primark. Bought some jumpers, went to my local printer on the corner of the road and where I live. Did I make the design? I think I made the first design, which was terrible. And the name of the brand was called Unique, Youneek. The reason I chose that is because Neek, Neek, Neeky, was like a slang word for someone that's a bit dweebish and smart and quirky, so bright colours and stuff. And then the U at the beginning, unique, so it was sort of speaking to being able to stand out and be individual. And then the mascot, I called him William Wizkid. And William Wizkid was this guy with the flick hats with the propeller on the top, kind of this dweeby character, but he was kind of cool. So he was the mascot, William Wizkid, who went to this special school where he learned all these things. I created a whole narrative behind the character. Yeah, people bought the jumpers. Looking at them now, they're shocking. But people bought them. And then I started to explore online a lot more, be inspired by the likes of Johnny Cupcakes, who is I think he's still going, but it was a brand from, where is he from? America, I can't remember what state. Really inspired by him because he would take pop culture images and rework them and slap them on a t-shirt and sell them for $40. So I was heavily inspired by what he was doing. And then also inspired by some of the UK brands, the more streetwear sort of brands. Put some of my designs on a forum, got absolutely roasted. Shockingly, what is this? This is ridiculous. But I took it and I was like, cool, bet, let's go. Got some money, hired some proper designers. A guy from the Philippines, great work. A guy from the UK, a guy from the States, reworked everything. I was like, here, look. People were like, oh, okay, cool, you've done something. And that's when there was a slight elevation. Again, all of my previous sort of business ventures, they're nothing. They were, for me, but they didn't create the finance that I was wanting at that time. But again, I never really did it for that. It was another pathway for me to express myself. Unique clothing, I was into clothing and expressing myself, and dance, that fits heavily into the dance, the hip-hop dance culture, baggy clothes, colours, custom spray paint jackets and that sort of things. So I was like, I'm going to make a brand. and then afterwards what else did I try? I tried to make an online calendar website, because as I started doing more dancing, there was a lot of like independent dance events, and they would always bloody clash. So like there's 2 events on the 16th of December, 2 events on the 5th of May. So I was like, how would it be to create an online portal where I could liaise with the organisers, who are also dancers most of the time, so we can curate a central dance calendar. And I called it Calendar Arts, a calendar for arts things, which the intention was not to limit it just to dance events. It was also to kind of incorporate, live mic events and stuff, because in the entertainment industry, there's sometimes quite a lot of crossovers. So you might want to go to that open mic night, but you also might want to go to the dance event, So I thought, let's have a central place. Did that, invested quite a lot of money. Never took off how I wanted to. So I've always had an idea, found a way to get the money, which at the time was a lot. When I think it's not a lot, couple of grand. But when you're not working full time, it is a lot. At the same time,
it's an investment.
It's an investment.
And a real, tangible commitment.
Yeah, exactly. But I never had anyone looking down on me for doing it or telling me I shouldn't do it. And a lot of the time it was just done I was at uni for 3 years anyway. So if I didn't report on it, you wouldn't know what I'm doing. And I'm not asking you, I probably asked a few times, but I'm not asking you for big sums of money. I'm talking about, I'm doing all the legwork, communicating with people in Canada, sending emails to get labels cheaper that are made in India, so I can put them on my t-shirts, finding the screen printers that can actually do bulk but low enough minimums, because I was still a very independent small, speaking to the designers, having my idea, articulating it in word form, working in partnership with them, saying, I like this, I don't like that, so there was definitely a level of confidence that built to be able to bring ideas into reality. And I feel that served me well to get to where I am now, and to further develop that skill in what I'm doing currently.
And what was the highlight of your dance career?
The highlight, it would be a split between performing at the opening ceremony for the Olympics 2012.
London.
Yeah. And performing for Rita Ora in Germany for the EMA Awards.
Cool.
So those two, they're 2 different types of job. So Rita was like a shorter period of rehearsals, learn the choreography, 1 track, fly to, was it in Paris? No, it was in Germany, it was in Frankfurt. Fly to Frankfurt, rehearsals with the extended team. I was part of the principal dancers, so there was like 4 principal dancers, and the rest were like not principal dancers. We were all dope, do you know what I mean? We was all doing a great job, and it's not to kind of put a hierarchy, because it doesn't really work like that. But there's kind of like usually dancers that are seen as like principals or mains. I was one of those for that particular job. And it was working with one of the choreographers that I've looked up to for years, Kenrick Sandy, who owns Boy Blue, and co-owns, co-choreographs, co-directs with Mikey J. So I was working with Kenrick, so it's like, love his choreo, great gig. But it was very quick. Whereas the Olympics was like 2 months of rehearsals, maybe even longer, a regular paycheck, like getting paid like a salary for that 2-3 months period of time, working with loads of dancers that then additional volunteers, props, costume. Well, we all had a costume, so I was the 70s era. So I was like wearing like a perm wig and like glitter like outfits and stuff. Then going to the arena, which is this massive arena, in East London, Stratford, I think it was. To then being televised to the world, so definitely those two are the most memorable. But most of the jobs that I've done have been like really memorable, and I've always taken away something. And because of the community essence of like the dance community, most jobs are fun. Like most jobs are really fun. It doesn't really feel like work. I mean, your body feels it, but it doesn't feel like work. It's really cool.
Okay, and then tell us about what you're doing now, the somatic coaching.
Yes. So it's been a journey. So taking in everything that I've kind of shared already, I found myself at a point, like, was it the pandemic? Just after I finished the art research and development phase for the Cain and Abel piece of work I was doing, I think that's when the pandemic had just happened, right? Because I had just come back from Thailand, 2020, then R&D, and then everything came to a halt. And I was having a lot of conversations with like my peers, my male peers, and like speaking about like well-being and like what are we doing. Bearing in mind, the dance community, like jobs what, right? I was working full-time at that point. So I had something to hold on to.
What were you doing?
So I was working at a dance company in administration again. So I was working for a dance organisation, like support/PA kind of work for the director of marketing. So I had something, but like my peers, there was a lot of things going on, and there was a lot of conversations and a lot of topics coming up about like well-being. And like, I remember I was saying that I felt that people always sort of came to me for like advice or guidance, or just to talk, just for me to be an ear for them to share something. And I started the Men Toolbox, which was another company or business that I created, which was with regards to men's mental health. A subscription box service. Every couple of months, I would send 4 to 6 grooming products to the men, to the subscribers, and like just really trying to cultivate conversation around men's mental health. So I would have like some nice quotes in there, details about the product, and it was to encourage self-care by way of grooming. And then I soon realized, or very quickly realized, that the business model, the subscription box business model, is a lot. Like it's because you need to have enough minimum. You need to have enough minimums to be able to barter the unit price with suppliers in order to make it cost effective. Otherwise, you're not even breaking even. You're losing money most of the time. And the math wasn't mathing. It just wasn't working out. And I was working full time, and I'm doing it by myself. So all of the ventures I had done were always by myself. Clothing line, by myself. The Callan Arts, my money, by myself. The subscription box company, my money, by myself. So it was a lot, and I was just getting like demotivated and kind of like, because it was quarterly as well, it wasn't really building a momentum, because I would only get money 4 times a year. It just wasn't really working, and I was too fearful to try and make it a monthly subscription, because then it put me further into a more difficult situation, because I need to have like 6 months worth of suppliers sorted out, know what the products are, but I've only got 15 subscribers. It just wasn't working. But during that time, as I came to that realization, I was like speaking with my partner, sharing about the fact that I want to help people. That was it. So I went through court with my son's mum. So that was the catalyst for me realizing some of the traumatic experiences that I'd been through that I was bringing into the work that time, but not aware of it, fully aware of it. Going to court. My son, she wanted to move country with my son. I previously used to live in Mallorca with her. We separated in Mallorca. I stayed there for a little bit longer. She came back. Then I came back later. A very like frictious relationship, but we stayed apart for the most part. Then she wanted to try and go back over there with my son and her daughter, who I saw as my stepdaughter at the time, but due to the fracture, all of that is non-existent. So I was like, you're not going anywhere. No, it's not happening. You've not too recently come back. It's the middle of the pandemic or soon after the pandemic. No, like I want a relationship with my son and you want to move country. That moment was a big catalyst because at that moment, I realized I needed to take my ass to therapy because if I didn't know where I would be. Years before, whilst I was in the relationship, I had a nervous breakdown. I can call it a nervous breakdown now because I have that bit more awareness about the nervous system, the body and stuff. But that came from me not speaking, sharing how I actually felt in the relationship that was very toxic, right?
You were just like holding it in.
And then it was like, broke down, like completely, gone.
And you weren't okay?
I was not okay. I was telling myself I was okay. And my partner at the time, I believe she was encouraging for me to believe that I was okay. But I was struggling, man. I was like, how the hell have I found myself in this situation where I'm engaged, moving to a different country with no job, I've got a son and a stepdaughter. This weren't the plan, Mike. Like, if I was to cast my mind back from that moment to like, how old was I? Like 20 something. To like 14, 15, 16, where I'm like trying to be like the bad boy, but also wanted to be the dancer. That weren't the plan. The plan was not for me to find myself in a situation where I'm a stepfather and got a kid, don't really know what I'm doing with my life in terms of work, haven't got substantial, steady income, conflicted between pursuing my dance career, which is fulfilling but not stable financially, to I'm a father and a stepfather, I need money. Then, oh, hey babe, let's move country. Okay, cool. What am I going to do over there? I don't know, like, think, we got the business and we can do these things. Okay, like, I was shitting myself, but I wasn't talking about it. So a lot of pressure, a lot of things were building up in me. And then, it just got too much. Where one morning I was getting ready for work. I was working in recruitment, like a top recruitment company at the time. Hated it, but money, right? I was like chasing money. Chasing money and never making the money that I wanted. But I was doing that. But at the same time, I had responsibilities. My son was born, had a flat. Again, prime example of making choices or agreeing with things that inside I don't really agree with, but because I feel there's an element of pleasing at that point my partner, babe, let's get this apartment, let's move in with each other. Me? You think I've got money to pay for rent? Consistently. I'm doing a gig here and there and like working in a call center. It's not a considerable amount of money to say that I'm committed to paying rent. When I was paying rent at uni, it's because I was getting student loan. It wasn't really my money, So to be to find myself in that position, be a new father, stepfather, moving in with someone, all of that, it was all very new. And I tell you, it happened so quickly in the space of 6 months. at that same time I got injured. So the dance career that I was so passionate about pursuing, I fell down the stairs. I didn't even injure myself dancing. I fell down the stairs, bruised my navicular bone, which is like the bone on the inside of your foot. My aunt has always worked in like the physio sort of realm, so she was able to fast track me through her connections. Managed to get like a private appointment, and yeah, he was like, "You've got two options. We either break your foot and reconstruct it, or you go into a walker boot with like a compression boot that you got to pad up, and you're off for 2 months minimum, and then you got to have rehab." At a point where I felt like I was just getting into my stride of the dance career. I'm a dad. That was my main source of income. I don't have that no more. Then we came to realize, the person I was with came to realize financially it was too tight. We could never afford the apartment. But we couldn't afford the apartment.
This was in London?
Yeah. Moved in with her side of the family. And then the conversation came up about moving to Mallorca because her brother was living over there. Yeah, the dream was sold to me. I took the dream, went along with that. But yeah, before going, in the run up to going, that's when I had the breakdown. And I was like, and I still went, we still went to Mallorca. Then months after, my grandma died. And that was like another like hit because I'm in a different country. I was very close with her. It was just like another hit. But again, I kept going. And I think that comes from the upbringing. Just keep going, right? Like you don't really question anything. You just keep going. That resilience.
Was your family supportive of your decisions?
To go? They were supportive. I remember my aunt was kind of like, my aunt is very much, I feel, she might not say different, I feel she's very much like me. So there's definitely a lot of awareness she had about the situation, but she's respectful for me to make my own decisions because it's not like I'm like 14 years old at that point. I'm like 20, I've got a kid. Do you know what I mean? But obviously when I've had conversations with her more recently, like unpacking stuff and being able to articulate myself a lot more, she was like, yeah, like I saw there was a lot going on, but I was so involved in that relationship and everything that was going on and wanting to do the right thing as the man, even though I didn't feel like I was doing the right thing. And that was often shared in the relationship, and this sense of like not feeling worthy started to come back again. All of that compounded into the breakdown and not feeling good enough, and that lack of confidence sort of came back where I'd been in the dance industry and was like super confident and like going to LA and like training with people and being asked to perform in America and doing certain things. Being in that relationship was really testing because it was like those parts of me that I kind of thought were no longer there. They were being poked in the relationship, but I was hella naive, not realizing what was actually taking place in front of me, and allowed things that I would never allow to happen again in that relationship. Coming back to the question, how did I get into the somatics? Yeah.
So what was the most pain? So you had a breakdown before you went, you still went, and stuff was really hard there, working, recruiting.
So I was in recruitment before I moved to Mallorca, had the breakdown before I went to Mallorca, went to Mallorca, was doing teaching in a dance studio for like $20, 20 euros an hour, getting like €400 a month, giving a large proportion of that to my partner at the time because we found a house, rented, but they had a business, that they had a family business. So sort of the caveat that I felt, the selling point, the dream was like, don't worry, Mike. We've got some finances coming in from the business whilst you guys find your feet. That was the plan. Your boy never found his feet. I never really found my feet over there.
Yeah.
I was always clinging on to something financially.
Did you go back to wait, sorry, I'm just trying to work out
the time. Trying to get the timeline. Yeah.
Did you go back to dancing after the injury? Or where is this with the pandemic as well?
Where is this? So this is before the pandemic. Mallorca's before...
Got it.
Yeah, Mallorca's before the pandemic. So the answer to that question is yes, I did go back to dance, but I wasn't dancing for artists and stuff. I was like, I'm going to tell my story now, or I'm going to tell stories. At that point, I was very interested in like hip hop theatre. So more storytelling as opposed to the more performative behind an artist sort of thing. So Mallorca was before, the injury was before, recovered, was dancing or teaching in Mallorca, had like a private client, a couple of private clients, and teaching at a dance school. Came back to the UK for my grandma's funeral, recorded like a dance video here, touched base with my community, because the intention was to get to a point in Mallorca where Mallorca was our base, my base, and I can come back and forth. It's only a few hours away, but obviously you need finance to do that. And then I was thinking, I can come back to the UK to work, do a stint of work, 4 weeks or something, and then go back to Mallorca to kind of have that base. But it never worked. And then the relationship was challenging. It was continuously, loads of different things were coming up. I was not perfect, I know that for sure, but there was a lot of toxicity in that relationship that was just perpetuating a lot of things from before. So then we separated. I came back. She came back. I went on this, I went to LA for a bit. That was 2018. I went to LA for a couple of weeks just to refresh myself. Then dancing, but not as, was I dancing? Yeah, I was working full time. I was not dancing full time. I was working full time because obviously I had my son, child maintenance and all that sort of stuff. But I was living with my granddad. And then I met my new partner, my current partner, should I say. And that's when the second piece of work post-pandemic happened, the 2 weeks and all of that stuff. And then after that was the mental box. And then that going to therapy, because of realizing all of this stuff that had happened years before, caught being a catalyst for this rage is in me with this person I've had a child with. The breakdown moment came up in me again, and I was like, if I don't do something to get support, I'm probably going to have another breakdown, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. Right?
So you were okay after the separation? It was just keep moving forward.
I wouldn't say I was okay. I was not conscious, not wanting to do the inner work. Wasn't aware of what that might look like. I kept putting off therapy. I remember doing a form. I went to the doctors and basically I filled out the form, ticked a few boxes, and those boxes where you kind of it tallies up and then this may be the answer. So my answer was potentially anxiety and depression. I screwed it up and threw it in the bin. So I just didn't want to accept that potential. Thought about therapy, but then used excuses. I haven't got the money. It was really, I didn't want to invest in that, and I didn't necessarily see the benefit of it. I thought that I could just drink, smoke, sleep around, and it will disappear. You know, but that's not reality.
So you were like functioning, but very unhappy, and all this under the surface.
Yeah, like internally, when I look back at it now, I was unhappy. Do you know what I mean? I was pissed the hell off because I was like, how did I end up here? You know, like most people have like an idea of what their life would like, what they would like their life to be, and of course, it doesn't always turn out to be that way. But for me, I was like, how the hell did I end up here? Like, it didn't make any sense to me. And I'm pretty sure other people kind of thought, how did you end up in this situation, bro? Like, what happened? You know, I kind of thought I'd be like the studious individual, maybe start a business, you know, like find a woman, you know, that I love, you know, get married first, and then have a kid, and then have a house by now. But here I am, like a damn vagabond, you know, with my suitcase and my tail between my legs, like the prodigal son coming back home, with tears in my eyes, you know, meeting my dad at the station after the failed relationship and the failed venture in Mallorca, like coming back home to live with my granddad after my grandma had just died, and just like being in the house. It was just really weird. You know, I came back and felt like I was starting again. And this is part of the whole mental health thing with men. It's like having conversations like this for men on how much one can actually lose in a relationship when you're, you know, if you're in a relationship. More often than not, the man, especially when there's kids involved, the house is for the woman. You've got the kids. You're not going to take the house away from you know what I mean, from looking after your child. And if you haven't got the funds, especially with how renting is now, to have your own place, shared accommodation isn't necessarily the most viable when you have a kid due to the data protection. Safeguarding, landlords don't really want kids in shared accommodation. Understandable. So then now you're thrown into the private rental market or living back home with family, which for a man, you know, the gender role of protecting and providing and having their own and all of this stuff, that's knocking you down, in addition to the breakdown of the relationship. And I came to find that these kind of conversations were not being had. And if they were being had in certain spaces, they were often knocked down by women. They weren't really, there was always some sort of rebuttal to this, you know, I found. Just kind of like, you know, like sort of like the man up sort of thing, or like the comparison of flipping the scripts. Well, you know, like a single mom has to go through X, Y, Z, and it's like, we acknowledge that, or at least most people in my circle. Like, I acknowledge that it's not easy for the mother who happens to have the child, because I believe single parenting is different to being separated, the dad's still around. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're a parent who has the child with you or the children with you most of the time. I don't necessarily classify that as a single parent. Do you know what I mean? If you're completely doing it by yourself and the dad isn't involved, yeah, single parent. But this whole notion of like, when a man brings up something in that conversation with regards to that single parenting or the challenges and struggles that they may go through mentally, or communication and access with the child, it's met with, oh, well, I go through X, Y, Z, and I'm doing this for your child, da, 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 da. So it's never really heard. Mm. And I also feel there's a level of acceptance. Well, this is what I got to go through as a man. You know, It's that sort of narrative. And I've always, based on my experience, I've always been like, hell no. Like, these things need to be spoken about. It needs to be spoken about the fact that, rightfully so, the mother, in most cases, who has the child, gets access to certain support. But what about a man that is doing everything that they should be doing, given the finances, but they find themselves in a position where their job doesn't pay enough for them to get private rental? and they can't get shared accommodation due to child protection. Where's the support? There is none.
Because then it's like they don't get to see the child as much. And then that has a negative effect on the child.
It has a negative, or then you've got the dad that is working the 2 to 3 jobs to maybe get the money so that they can get their apartment, so that they can, see the child. But then they're not able to see the child as much because they work. Do you know what I mean? So it's this sort of, these very granular conversations that I don't really hear too much. You often hear about the toxic dad. You don't hear about the toxic mother. You hear about the narcissistic dad. You don't hear about the narcissistic mother. It's all of it's like I just find that the other side of the conversation from a male perspective generally isn't welcomed nor heard. And if that space is created that's supposed to be a safe space, it generally is sort of shut down. This is why there's so many men that just say, screw it. A lot of men don't even go to court to fight because they're like, why am I going to court to fight for my right to see my child? I was pissed when I found myself going to court. I'm spending grands to get access to potentially see my child regularly. And in the end, she was still granted the opportunity to leave, despite my concerns. And then a year later, she found herself right back in the country. So one of my arguments was, I don't want them to go because we lived there before. My son's been through quite a lot of different changes, different schools, different countries, different houses. For you to go over there based on some of the information that I knew already, which doesn't need to be disclosed, I don't want them to go and then come back because that's a disruption. It happened. They went and they come back because the judicial system, if that's the right way of saying it, is focused on the well-being of the child. Of course. But if it doesn't fit into certain parameters, it's not really identified as the well-being of the child. And because it's family court, it's not criminal court. So you can't cross-examine? Like you can't, it's not a fight. It's not a fight. It's more so about coming to an agreement. And I was distraught at the fact that she was able to go. The message I got from my son on the day that he went, I woke up at 4 a.m, saw that message, and I just screamed down the apartment. Because it was just like, I fought, but I wasn't successful. So I kind of felt like I let my son down. Do you know what I mean? But I also let myself down. Then I was pissed at her.
How old was he?
At that point, he was like 8. About 2 years ago now. Yes, he was about 8. So of age to be able to communicate, got his mobile phone and stuff, but it weren't easy because it just felt like, the reality was a big distance was put between us.
And was that the lowest point for you?
Sense into that. Was it the lowest point? Yeah. I think it was. You know what it's like? It was like, I've never been in a ring, but I can imagine it to be like I'm just in a ring and I'm just, I can laugh about it now, but it was like I'm in a ring. No, let me expand this even more. It was like I got dropped, not chose to jump. It's like I got dropped from a cliff and somehow on the way down, I've just got sweet bangs to the chin and to the stomach. So it's like I'm already falling, and on the way down, I'm getting hit. That's what it felt like. Do you know what I mean? Like, Mallorca, relationship broke down, separated, we tried to co-parent everything. Okay, cool. Trying to build myself up, live my life, etc., etc., etc. Hey, I want to move to Mallorca. No, you're not doing it. Go through court. Boom, 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 boom. It was that. Again, how the hell did I get here? And it's kind of why me? Why am I going through this? Like, what's happened in the past life of mine that I'm going through this shit right now with the same person? Because it's not like I was experiencing loads of challenging things from loads of different people. You know, like my social life was really good. Got a good community of friends. My like professional, like both the dance when I was dancing a lot more, and my work life was really good. You know, like my like relationship sort of, you know, life was cool. It's just this one person. Like, why am I going through this stuff with this one person? There's still more to discover there, I'm sure, in terms of the potentially why, what lessons. I've learned a lot of lessons since then that have definitely shaped me into who I am now. But during that time, that was just like, the hell, what am I going through? Why am I going through this? Like, can I even take anymore? You know, like when I was in Mallorca, like, yeah, I weren't having good thoughts. Do you know what I mean? Like, I really wasn't. And there was a period of time when I was alone because we separated in Mallorca. So I moved out to my own apartment, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, I'm not good. I was too scared to say. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was heavy. It was heavy.
I'm so glad you got out of that place.
Yeah.
That's something I care about a lot. I lost my brother to suicide, so I'm like, feel that. Anyway, but that's why, it's so important to be able to have these conversations about that. About the parenting stuff. Everything, like, you need to be able to say what you're feeling. It doesn't matter, you know, it's not a nice situation. Like, everyone's struggling. But if one person is not, you know, that's how you end up in those outcomes, because someone's suffering so much, there's no escape.
Yeah, and I'm thankful. I'm really thankful for the people I had around me, even though I don't feel I fully appreciated the people that were around me. You know, like, I know I acted out in some ways that I shouldn't have with certain people. I cut off certain people, even, you know, when I was like dating or, you know, just casually dating and doing my thing. I was carrying a lot of hurt from my relationship, the past relationship. So I definitely feel that whatever I picked up or whatever I was sitting with in the casual nature of what I was doing, there was like, I mean, my friends and I, during that period of time, we joked about it. We were like, it's like black heart season, which sounds pretty deep, but I felt like my heart was just black. I don't really care. Like, you know what this is? I know what this is. You cool with that? All right, let's go. Because from a relationship, casual perspective, and I was very much like, I'm not really trying to get into anything. That was because I was scared of going through that stuff, of going through anything similar to what I went through previously. Because I never saw it coming. You know, I never saw that coming. So it's so important to have people around you that do have a level of awareness to be able to support you. And it's also important for you to find something in you if you are going through any challenging times, just to say something. Or maybe not say anything, but put yourself in a position to be around someone. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes, especially, this kind of leads in with like the somatic work and me being aware of like the non-verbal cues. And when I say people like, oh are you like watching all of my body language? It's like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't do that day to day. But you can sense, like even now and through this conversation, like I can sense in myself and working on like continuing to ground myself in the conversation to be present and to feel resourced in sharing some challenging things, some challenging topics for myself, for yourself, maybe to listen, for whoever's listening as well. Where am I going with this? So yeah, in terms of, it's not always what you say. You may not have the words to say, I'm struggling, I'm going through something, but being present with somebody, like my homies came out to me in Mallorca. I had separated, I had my own apartment, and it was my birthday. And my ex-partner and I, our birthdays are like 3 days apart. So there was that continuous, like even though we're not together, there's that little like connection. And of course, we've got the big connection of having a child together, right? So they had planned, we were going to have a pool party because the house I had a nice pool and everything. It was living like a life, right? Had a pool, had a garden and stuff. So they had already booked their tickets and were ready to come out. And then I had to break to them the embarrassing news that we're not together no more. Don't know what you guys want to do, because you were going to come and celebrate our birthday as a pool party, but we're not together anymore. So they were like, no, Mike, no worries. Like we're going to come over still. Yeah. Them coming over meant a lot. Because I wasn't in a good place. I wasn't in a good place at all. Like, not to rehash what we just went through, but I wasn't in a good place. And it's just speaking to the importance, maybe value is a bit more of a resonant word. The value of having people around you. Because yeah, like everyone's going through shit, man. Everyone's going through shit. You wouldn't even know, like the person that serves you in prep, Starbucks, you know, like a family member, your parents could be going through things that you would never have known. And I feel that's, for me, that is what is also so humbling and also powerful about the position I find myself in with coaching clients, where I'm holding space for them to work through stuff. And the nature of somatic work, like, so somatics is, I would say, is more widely known within the therapeutic field. So when people hear somatics, they're like, yeah, somatic therapy, somatic experience, you know, trauma, Peter Levine, you know, that sort of stuff. Yeah. And I was blessed to find myself in this position of training with a very good school. One of the only or very few schools, at least, who trains body-oriented coaches, somatic. So calling on the somatic, therapeutic, wisdom, all of that sort of stuff, the body, and bringing it into the coaching space from the perspective of finding that traditional coaching can be still very valuable. Of course, I still do that. But having this additional awareness of the body unlocks something else where you're able to hold space with whomever you're working with on a deeper, more cellular level, because it's not just the mind, you know, the concept or the school of thought or the philosophy behind somatics, deriving from the word soma, Greek for of the body. It's this totality, it's this holistic nature that it's not just, where we are not just our mind, you know, we are full resourceful, creative, and whole entities that have a mind and a body, the mind-body connection, you know, the conversation is two-way as opposed to, yeah, I just think this way. And it's interesting for me, for someone who didn't really feel comfortable with acknowledging or expressing my emotions, that I find myself, maybe because I've gone through so many challenging emotional things and that I had the breakdown, it's like, well, bro, like, you can't just keep holding these emotions in, because you're going to mess yourself up. You're not going to be okay. And so finding myself in a position now where I'm able to sit with clients, like sometimes I come out of sessions and I'm just like, wow, you know, sometimes it's not even like, what goal are we working to? You know, what are you trying to get to? Sometimes that person just wants to feel heard and seen and just have a space, a safe enough space. I can't guarantee your safeness. Everyone's level of safety, everyone's neuroception of safety is different, right? But what I can do is be present, listen actively, you know, be empathic, you know, and understanding, non-judgmental to what is being shared, and not trying to make sense of it, because this is this, but we're trying to make sense of it. Like, why did this happen? That's helpful, but it's not always helpful, because some things are not necessarily conceptually understood. They're understood on an embodied level, like that gut feeling, like I know in this conversation right now, there's that energy that I'm feeling in my hands, you know, in my chest, in my stomach. It's energy work. Do you know what I mean? And I also I did some training in Reiki, never to practice, to become a practitioner, but because of a personal experience I had with my current partner, and she was sharing some stuff, and we were just like, you know, in this really like deep space that organically cultivated between us in conversation, and I got extremely overwhelmed. I remember I ran, I got my sage and my light up, I was like, I don't know what's going on here, like I didn't know. And it was at that point where I was like, if I'm going to step into this coaching sort of stuff, I need to figure out what's going on energetically, man, so that I don't like get wrapped into other people's stories, because I got my own shit that I'm dealing with. You know, like coaches and therapists and guides and oracles or whatever different names, you know, and different modalities people operate in. We're still humans. Everyone has their own stuff to go through. And so, yeah, I found myself in the coaching space after all of that stuff that I've just shared. Conversation with my partner, her sharing, oh, you might be good with therapy, me considering it and me thinking, I don't know if I want to do therapy. Binging coaching podcasts. I honestly can't remember exactly how I fell into it, but it definitely was conversation with my partner, hearing coaching. No, that's it. After court, I wanted to help other men who had gone through similar court situations with regards to their children. So there was kind of like that law pathway, and I was like, I'm not really trying to do all of that. Like, I'm 35 now. Like, I don't want to do 7 years of law to help a few guys. Like, I'm passionate about it, but like, not 7 years worth of passion. Then therapy, and I was like, again, I don't really want to study for years. Then I looked at dance movement psychotherapy to blend my dance practitioner side of things with something therapeutic. And then it wasn't resonating with me, because I was like, it's a master's, I have to stop working, I won't have any income, can I afford to do that in this climate? No. And then I started looking at a few other things, and the images and the websites, they weren't resonating with me, you know, kind of speaking to my upbringing. I'm a black guy, I've got gold tooth, I've got piercings, I've got locks, I've got tattoos. And here I am talking about the wisdom of the body. Like, in my mind, I don't, you know, other people may not even think about it. But this, I guess, is like my beliefs or beliefs that may not have been as too of much value for me. It's kind of like, what? It kind of speaks to that, your deep part again. It kind of ignites that part in me. But what I was seeing on the websites, the reason I named that is because I wasn't seeing any representation of me on the websites that I was looking at when it came to these sort of spaces, the dance movement psychotherapy or the movement stuff or like different more, specific Feldenkrais or whatever. I wasn't seeing me. I wasn't seeing a reflection of me. Yeah, that landed quite deeply. I wasn't seeing a reflection of me in this thing. I didn't know what I was looking for. I was looking for something to step into, right? I wasn't seeing a reflection of me. And then stumbled across the school that I trained at. It was like, there's something here. And I don't even know if there was anyone that I felt resonant with in terms of imagery or whatever, but it just felt right. Then I jumped on a welcome call, and then I found myself in this position.
How long ago was that?
Oops. I trained like 20. We're in 24 now, aren't we? So 22 is when I qualified. So it was like the end of 2021. I trained for so before that I did like a life coaching course, self-guided one, just to see. I was like, is this what I want to do? And then I came across the Somatic school, which is where I trained for 6-7 months. So that was like the second part of it, like the next step for me.
And your life was gradually getting better, or you did therapy that helped, like
therapy. The timeline is a bit disjointed for me. I don't know. It must be a thing of mine where a lot of things happen all at the same time. Don't know if anyone else resonates, but for me that seems to be true. So therapy was in and around that particular period, like off the cusp of doing the court situation, because that went on for like 6-7 months, and then there was a few months before she actually went with him, and then it was like, oh, she's gone, and now I've got all of these emotions to deal with. Like therapy, that time I went to therapy for like 3 months, which was extremely valuable. That's where I really like started to get into more personal practices, journaling, meditating, feeling more comfortable to communicate myself, my partner, like speaking to her, like a lot of tears, like there was a lot of crying. But it was I felt so comfortable, and I still feel very comfortable with it. Like there was just a lot of tears, a lot of like releasing. Like I've created like my Zen den, I call it. It's just a small space, like a box. And I'm like, recall like going in there and just like journaling and like having my headphones on and playing music. And there'd be times where I come out of there, almost like come out of the prayer room. My partner's like, are you okay? Because she would have just heard me just wailing down, because I'm just like, this very like cathartic like pain. And again, conceptually, I couldn't tell you what it was about, right? But on an embodied level, I was going through it. Yeah, I was going through it, man. And the therapy really helped. Helped me to like feel comfortable with speaking about how I'm feeling, where I didn't feel comfortable speaking before, especially in the relationship, because it always felt like it was met with, you're the problem. And then I started to believe, like, oh, maybe I am the problem. And then I would try to fix the problem, me, the relationship. And then it may last a little bit, and then it wouldn't. And then we go again. Toxic as hell. Like cycle after cycle the cycle. Go again, we'll separate, I'll move out. I come back and see the kids, everything's changed, my pictures have gone, okay, cool, well, we would re-engage intimately, I'll get back together. It was that. And it's like, this ain't me, like I'm not that guy. Like you hear about it, she keeps going back to him, why? He keeps going back to her, why? I never thought it would be me. Never thought it would be me.
Yeah. But when you're stuck in it, it's very hard to see clearly.
You can't see the veil is there, and until, however, by whomever that veil is lifted, a lot of the time you ain't seeing shit. All you're seeing is what you're seeing right in front of you, which you've got to a point of it being normal. So you just accept it, which is why, I'm not a psychologist, but there's definitely, from like a trauma, like people find themselves in a trauma loop. Things become normalized. So people find themselves actually inviting that toxicity, inviting that because that is what they're used to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that's why I guess we do have these helping professions, people who are therapists, but first it takes the acknowledgement that, not that you're broken and you need to be fixed, but it would be valuable for me to get some support, for someone to shine a light on my blind spots, because we've all got blind spots. That's like, you drive a car, you can't see everything, you're not a pigeon. And even pigeons I don't think have 360. Like, you can't turn your head around and see what's behind you. That's why you've got wing mirrors on a car. When you're driving on your destination, you put the GPS coordinates in, you go where you're going, you're driving, you check your left, your right, your inside mirror, right? If you didn't have those mirrors, you'll get hit, you'll get impacted. So that's why we can have other people in our lives to shine a light, to kind of be our wing mirrors, to be our internal mirrors. But also at the same time, it's our responsibility to cultivate time for self-reflection, that inner work. And that has helped me tremendously to be able to throw stuff on a piece of paper in journaling. Not even trying to make sense of it, but just getting stuff out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've even got write-ins when I left Mallorca of like documenting it. Like, I'm sitting in the airport right now, we've just broken up, I've got 200 euros, I've just gone to the dance studio to get my last piece of money, and I'm going back to the UK. I've just spent my money on a ticket, my mouth is dry because it's hot, and I've got €1. So I'm fabricating some of it, but I was documenting things, I'm writing it down. There's a power in writing, and there's a power there's power in releasing, extracting what's in your mind, what's in your body out. That's how we create things, right? An idea, you put it out on paper, you speak it, you manifest it, whatever you want to name it, and you create. It's not going to be created just staying in your mind. It's not going to come out just staying in your mind. It's the same with emotions, energy in motion. It's not meant to just stay stuck in your body. It's to move. I was even listening to a podcast about earlier in the gym, it was talking about tears. There's some sort of structure about tears that are actually helpful, that if you were to ingest your tears, like the chemical makeup changes to help you in some sort of way. I'll research it a bit more and see what that is about, but like, for me, that points to the fact that emotions, how they come out in terms of tears or what, they're meant to come out. They're not meant to stay within you. They're meant to be expressed. Of course, in a safe way, not like a fit of rage. But now they've got rage rooms, haven't they? Where you can go somewhere and just go crazy and like break shit up. Like, so, yeah, they haven't got any here.
Okay, last question. What's life for you like now?
What's life like for me now? Life for me now is still an exploration. It's still a discovery. I'm a lot more happier, feeling a lot more fulfilled, feeling a lot more excited about what I'm building on in the present and what I intend to have built for the future. I'm a lot more aware. So like, even as I said that, it's like I'm here. I know what I want over there, but I'm here. And over there only exists here, right? So yeah, like I'm looking forward to what the future's bringing. You know, I see my son every weekend. The relationship between his mum and I is still, I've enforced a very strong boundary as of the last year where the communication is limited to email. That's it. Because I've had to learn, you know, this particular character archetype, how one must deal with that individual for your own peace and sanity. And that is my own boundary. And boundaries are personal. So for you, that make that, you know, for someone else, that may seem like, oh, how could you do that? That's fine, sir, lady, that's fine. You ain't got to agree with my boundary, just as I don't agree with yours. This is for me, that's for you. And so for me, the relationship aspect, I see my son on the weekends and holidays, you know, like he's growing up and able to share things with him a lot more. And that's all I've ever wanted. That's all I've ever wanted. So now it's like, okay, cool. Let's build. Honor where I've come from. Honor where I am now. Look forward to what I can create. Memories I can create. And being of service to others with my coaching, which, you know, as I said, I'm humbled that I get the opportunity to work with individuals and that people are trusting me with whatever they're bringing. You know, I mean, I not specifically, but like the space that I'm operating in, especially being on Twitter, it's more like digital entrepreneurs, creators, etc. But at the same time, the scope of my coaching skills is not boxed in. It's by choice that I would like to work with like creatives and entrepreneurs in that capacity. And it's a true honor to be able to do so. You know, it's a true honor that people trust me and are willing to exchange finances to invest in themselves by investing in the support from me. So, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, 3 quick questions that everyone gets.
All right, cool.
To wrap up.
Yeah.
How do you stay grounded?
Meditation as much as I can. Journaling. And just being aware, like just catching myself. Like even in this conversation, catching myself where I'm like, you know, that felt sense, I'm feeling something. It's like, okay, what might that be? And how can I like resource myself and be aware of where I am right now? Do you know what I mean? Like I've got the support of the chair. Mm-hmm. My feet are physically grounded. I can feel my feet on my insoles and then I can feel the sole of the trainer here. Being aware, you know, of my breathing. Like when I was having the breakdowns and then I had like after that panic attacks, I couldn't breathe properly. Like every 2 seconds, I couldn't breathe. So I'm aware of all those things. So I would say, yeah, definitely sort of like I say this to my partner, like having daily practices, they're anchors for your life. Mm. So no matter how far you might go away from I don't know, my sea language isn't too good. What is it? Not the shore. Where do they dock? The harbour. That's it. Yeah, the harbour. No matter how far you move away from the harbour, metaphorically speaking, you'll always be able to come back. Mm-hmm. You'll always be able to come back to a platform, to a sense of safety when you're anchoring practices. And for me, it's meditation and journaling. I don't do it every day, but I do it most days. I've got like my own little journaling framework. You know, some people have breath work and that. in terms of breath work as a continuous practice, it's time. You know, like having the time to like do breath work, then journal, then meditate, then get ready to go to. But the ideal lifestyle, the good life, the life that I'm working towards, I'll have that time, wake up, have my tea, stretch, journal, meditate, breath work, a cacao. You know, I'll have that time. Then I'll get into the flow of work. I'm working on that. I'll get there.
Is there a book that's had a big impact on you?
There's quite a few, actually. The Power of Now.
Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, The Power of Now. But yeah, I was just reading like a whole load of books, like The Power of Now, 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, The 4 Agreements, Miguel Ruiz, Eckhart Tolle's other book, I can't remember what that was called. New Earth. Then more on like the more somatic sort of like body stuff, like Peter Levine, Waking the Tiger. I'm reading a really interesting book right now about inner work and active imagination and dreams. And that's just like, it's lighting me up.
Cool.
So yeah, I would say for me, around that time when I was going through it, Eckhart Tolle.
Who wrote the book you're reading at the moment? We can put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. What 3 words describe the best version of you?
What 3 words describe the best version of me? Yeah, I don't think it came out that much in this, but I've definitely got like that foolish side of me, which I think is a part of me that I want to bring out a lot more. 3 best side of me. Resilient. God damn. Resilient. Do you know what I mean? And I'm saying that with like humbly as well. But yeah, for a while I kind of diminished my experiences to kind of think like, oh, it's not that bad. For me, it was challenging, right? So definitely resilience. And personable. Like I would like to think that like I can connect with people. Obviously, you know, everyone takes a little while to warm up and kind of get in their vibe, but I feel that I like connecting with people and like connecting deeply with people, you know, like not too deep, like connecting with people on a level. And yeah, it's not really kind of limiting oneself. So I would say, yeah, resilient, personable, and foolish. Not all the time, but sometimes.
Amazing. And where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter. So my handle is the Mike G Simon. Also the same on Instagram, although I'm a lot more active on Twitter. That's probably the best way. Right? Shoot me a DM. We can connect. Yeah, that's the best way to reach me, to see where I'm at. Unless you see me walking down the street, then that's different. But digitally, Twitter, the Mike G Simon.
Amazing. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, feel free to share it with someone. And also, a random 23-year-old just messaged me on Instagram and told me he found the podcast through the algorithm. So it actually does help if you review the podcast and subscribe or follow. And then you get to find out about future episodes as well.